I was in the hype of growing and growing, expanding. And then one year, I lost everything. And because of that loss I had, I managed to have the opportunity to be connected with the true me and find my mission. Between 1995 and 2000, I was running a startup based in Taiwan, and we expanded to China. The company started with 2 co-founders, and in a couple of years, we had 250 people. I left the company I co-founded because I believed that this decision would prevent the unnecessary conflict when the company at that moment needed solidarity. Because of that, I came to the UK, I started a new life, and I built the new set of friends. Had that not had happened, I would not have been here, and I would not have British children. So, I really didn't lose anything. At the beginning, when the children were very young, they responded when I spoke Chinese. And then they realized that actually, most people, they speak English. So they started refusing. I saw that they were not interested in learning Chinese. And after searching for solutions, I couldn't find any. So I started drawing on notebooks, and then I started using my computer to show what the character means. Each character is like a piece of art. After breaking down thousands of Chinese characters, I discovered there are only about 70, 80 building blocks. If you know those 70, 80 building blocks, you can construct hundreds and thousands of characters. I had the vision in my mind. The type of illustrations has to be something universal, something striking. They have to look like what the character means, and something that everybody from different cultural, linguistic background can understand. After I showed a couple friends the method I developed, I decided to do a Kickstarter campaign. We tried to raise 75,000, and we ended up with 195,000, 197,000 pounds. This is really not just about learning Chinese. The mission for Chinesey is to bridge the gap between the East and the West, because our future depends on our ability to bring the East and the West together in a peaceful and productive relationship. My children have been my inspiration from the beginning. We started with a napkin. Now we have games, apps, and publications available in over 19 languages in 30-something countries. Without going through this process, it's hard to understand. When bad things happen, you never know. There's another door that could open for you. I don't have a job. I have a mission.
Hello and welcome to the show. Well, it could be the key to world peace. It could, in fact, bring us apart totally. It could be behind the greatest, most beneficial developments in mankind that we've ever seen or even ever been able to imagine. Yet no one can tell us when this it will actually ever eventuate. In its simplest form, it is AI. But it's so much more than AI because it's morphed into something even more powerful. And that's what we're going to explore in our time together with Rita Arrigo, who is the Chief Digital Advisor at Microsoft, who focuses on emerging technologies like AI, also holographic and cryptographic technology. How about that? G'day, Rita. Thanks for your time.
It's a complete pleasure, and thank you for such an exciting intro.
Well, I was staggered with the research, and that's what we're going to talk about. Obviously, I've had to research this quite heavily because talking to someone like you who is a worldwide authority on not just AI, but when I got into holographic and cryptographic technology, I got totally lost, I've got to tell you.
Well, it's some of the stuff's actually going to really dramatically affect the real estate and property market. So
Yeah,
yes, I'd love to share with you a
I
bit
can
more of this stuff.
see that. Well, let's start at basics. Tell me, what is AI in its simplest form?
Well, for me, AI is the ability for us to use computer vision to see. So computer vision has really changed nowadays, and it allows us to actually not just look at video footage anymore in the way we used to, but actually interpret it so that we can know what's going on in that video and understand objects in the videos and space in the videos. So being able to see is a very important part of AI. Then there's the ability to be able to interpret. So the way it can do understanding of language, and understanding of how to act as well. So you start to hear about things like digital assistants and bots, and then also starting to learn about machine learning and prediction. So there's those other elements that kind of get brought in as well. And so when you mix them all together, there's like a real transformation that can occur.
I really want to get into that predictive analytics as well, and how we work with bots and what are bots. I know what bots are, but I mean, let's really try and dig into that. Can I ask you, because this is a property program, how is the property industry using AI?
Well, we've had a lot of people using AI around predicting the price of property in particular areas. That we have this kind of very sketchy way we figure out pricing, and being able to use machine learning to understand and do prediction around that. It's also around really big areas around property maintenance, to be able to predict failure of appliances, air conditioning, machinery, those kind of things, so we can better manage it. Also around being more sustainable, so that we can predict energy usage, etc. And there's the emergence of the smart home with a lot of this technology where digital key locks, the ability to talk to your lights, all your appliances connected to the internet, those kind of things. And I think the other area is this area of big data or data science, where we're starting to be able to predict using social and other forms of data what's actually going on in the neighbourhood. So I was actually at the launch of Global Smart Cities, Women in Global Smart Cities, this last week, and I met this Victorian company, amazing, called Neighbourlytics, and they actually will analyse everything that's going on in your neighbourhood, so that if you're looking for a place that's specifically great for kids, then you know a lot more about the neighbourhood. So not much more richer data about what's going on in the area, which I think you wouldn't pick up, other than what we used to do is probably walk down the street.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you say that, because I think, as I sort of hinted at the start, that AI is all around us, and we're just becoming used to understanding that is AI. That's what it's all about, this predictive stuff, and being able to tell who's at our doorstep across the internet. I heard a term recently called the Internet of Things, and I wondered what that was, but that's obviously what we're talking about here, isn't it? The Internet of Things.
The IoT, when you've got devices connected, and then the devices can be connected in so many different ways. So you can connect a device so that it can see who's in your house. It can help you open the doors. It can help you figure out the temperature of your plants and make sure they've got enough water. It can help you figure out whether to shut the blinds at a particular time, because it's going to save you a lot of money and energy, because your house is going to stay cooler. But open the blinds so that you don't have to light it. So a lot of these kind of environmental IoT. The first gang I met was a guy that was actually learning using IoT to open and close his chicken coop so that he could get the chickens in and out. So it's a real a groundswell, like people just really get into it. And it's not highly, it's got a real kind of following. It's kind of like a bit of a do it yourself thing where people want to learn about it and really implement it into their homes, as well as the real high tech, where people just build these high tech smart homes that are all IoT enabled with AI that can predict things.
I remember reading once, right back, it might have been several years ago, about smart fridges and how they could analyse what's in there and then actually, without you even getting involved, reorder the eggs get delivered, or the milk or whatever. It just tells you what you're running out of. And that's at its very basic form, isn't it? That sort of Internet of Things.
Yeah, well, in the old days, I used to laugh about, I was at Telstra when they made the first internet fridge, and it was just a browser on a fridge that you could browse the web.
Yeah.
And it was like, wow, that's awesome. But now we do put cameras inside them, and you do know what's in your fridge, and you can connect that to a stock chart, and you can start to ordering it. But, then there's stuff like the washing machine that will order its own washing powder and all that kind of thing. So definitely the automation of the home and reducing some of the maintenance costs associated with it is something that IoT can deliver.
Yeah, IoT, of course, apart from just these very basic things, can also be very beneficial for us. And I don't know how real this is, but I read somewhere about a mirror that could actually detect on our skin when there was something wrong, pick up like an early device to see if we've got any skin cancers, or even read our eyes to see how healthy we are, and then communicate directly with our doctor. Is that a reality, Rita?
You know what? It actually is. I've got this futuristic bathroom I sometimes talk about. And when we think about the way that we do want to spend a lot more time as we grow older, we want to spend more time, we want to spend more time in our homes rather than in homes. And so it's about trying to create that feedback loop so we always know what's going on. And so it's definitely can do that early detection of a whole range of different issues and keep us healthier. So that stuff's quite exciting.
Yeah. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, because I'm going to take you into an area that I have very little knowledge about. But AI can be described in different ways. I understand it was virtual reality, which was the start, then augmented reality, and now we're into something called mixed reality. Can we talk about that journey? Did I get that correct, by the way?
Yeah, I suppose it's more when you think about holographic computing. So, we all started, have you ever used a Google Glass and walked Google and walked through a property?
Yes.
Right? And so we started to experience that on our mobile phones. And Microsoft took it one step further, where we developed mixed reality, which is actually a device that you wear, and it overlays holographic images into the physical space. So, for example, the company I was talking to you about, Follogram, who are an amazing group of architects that believe that architects design, they wanted to debunk the theory that architects design things that are too hard to build. Right?
Yep.
And so, because they're always designing these like fabulous stuff and it takes 6 months of assembly. But what they could do now is they could wear the HoloLens, for example, and it would provide a digital grid. So they no longer needed to measure, cut, ruler, strings, all that kind of stuff. And they could actually start constructing that way. And so that is an example of mixed reality. The other example is like to be able to overlay what your new kitchen might look like. So, for example, back in the 70s when my mum got a kitchen, we had this amazing sketch artist come over and he drew a picture of our kitchen. It was like the most exciting day ever. Well, imagine now that we will be getting a holographic version of our kitchen and be able to walk around it and see what it looks like, and then perhaps place that order with Bunnings. These are the kind of things that are going on with mixed reality.
Yeah, I'm going to provide a couple of links at the bottom of this interview too, but I do want to play a video, the one that you just mentioned, about that Australian company doing great stuff with HoloLens. Is it HoloLens? Yeah.
Correct.
But down below you'll find a couple of videos to go and have a look at. One is about designing a kitchen, which Rita mentioned, and also the other one is about building safer cars. But I want to just now go to a video that will play, which is... tell me a little bit about this company. What are they doing, Rita, building this brick wall?
So what they're doing is it's a Tasmanian company that have a passion for bricks. Like they really love bricks. But when they create these complex brick walls, they take a lot of measuring and a lot of planning and all this kind of stuff. But now they wear the HoloLens and they can create these more complex walls without all the complex measuring that comes with that. So it was like taking a very traditional company and putting a modern edge on it. But I think what's also exciting about the HoloLens, and perhaps in some of those discussions we were having earlier, is that as we become more comfortable with AI and mixed reality and these crypto technologies, we're going to want to perhaps learn new skills, be able to do new things, and be able to participate in this new economy.
Yeah.
And what these technologies can do is they can dramatically improve how quickly you can learn how to do things and become skilled in those areas.
Yeah, it's really quite amazing technology. We're going to roll that video right now. When we come back, I want to talk to you about what you just talked about, and that is the skills that we need to develop and also humanising innovation. So let's just roll that video now that tells that wonderful story about the Tasmanian company. Let's just have a look at that.
The University of Tasmania have been implementing Fologram in workshop scenarios, so building complex brick structures, building complex timber structures, and working with it in a fabrication environment. UTAS ran a workshop and invited Colin and his team at Allbrick to come and try out the headset on some of the tricky geometry that they were producing in the university. So we heard from the team at UTAS that they wanted to put the brickies to the test on this complex fabrication project, so we went down to see what they'd been up to.
There isn't a single brick on there that lines up to anything. Every brick is different. This would take you like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
For one guy, and a lot of that would have to be, made up. Do you know what I mean? You're not going to get it exactly like this would be.
UTAS provided a design model, and Colin used Fologram to turn that into a holographic instruction set. This lets Colin see the outline and precise placement of every single brick in the wall. Aside from using Fologram as an instruction set, Colin was also able to use it to train his apprentices.
So that's all the bricks, right? Yep. So see how you are here. That one's good. Yep. This one here shows it's got to come round. So just treat that like you do your string line all the way around. Mm-hmm. So hit that back. It took us 2 brick layers, and it took us took 2 brick layers, about 6.5 hours.
The really exciting thing about this project is that now Colin and his team can approach architects and enable them to design more complex things, knowing that he has the capability to build them. I was surprised by the accuracy and the fidelity to the digital model that Colin and his team were able to achieve. I'm really looking forward to seeing how Colin can work with architects to develop more complex structures that are even more challenging than this one and build them at a larger scale in permanent projects.
I once seen a program on John Lennon, and he reckons every song that he made, he used to get scared that I'm going to stop now because I'll never make anything better than that, That's how I'm thinking, it's time to stop. I'm nervous that I can't make nothing better.
Rita, just watching that, what amazes me is that if you really think this through, that technology allows builders, architects to see where there are problems before the construction even starts. So it's actually going to be a great cost-saving tool, I would imagine.
Absolutely. And I think that a lot of that planning and measuring and that kind of stuff is sometimes, has elements of error, all those kind of things. And definitely, so one of the key drivers around using mixed reality in construction is cost reduction as well. So it's definitely...
Yeah, I think
less
when you
accidents as well.
Yeah, when you jump down and have a look at those other couple of videos, you'll see exactly what we're talking about there. In almost predicting where. I think in one video, they've got the ability to actually put I think it was a medical one that I was watching where they were able to put all of the equipment in and then see where the lighting needed to go and say, well, we need to move that vent, we need to do this. So that was all, even before they started construction, even at the early planning stages, they could see what modifications they needed to make. Because quite often we see people having to come back, or builders having to come back and make changes because of something that they didn't see in the original building.
Yeah, it's true. And you know, I have a colleague that says that mixed reality allows you to see the unseen.
Yes.
And in a lot of ways, it really does, because it actually allows you to place yourself in a real world and be able to walk around that and see stuff that you'll only see if you were really there. So yeah, it's definitely allows you to have that foresight of what it would be like.
In the research, I watched a lecture that you gave on humanising innovation, and you talk right up front about the need to have fun, and I think that sort of comes through in everything you do. I mean, you obviously love what you do, and this really excites you, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, and I think, you know, we have had some, you know, we've gone through the Industrial Revolution, our lives have been complex, we're on hold for 40 minutes on contact centres sometimes just to find out what's wrong with our mobile phone, you know, and like we do need to make life more fun and bring back the creativity and, you know, these kind of the IoT, the maker in us, the slow food movement, all that kind of stuff. And I think a lot of this freeing up of our, you know, intellectual capacity to do things that is, you know, more exciting than and giving more to the machines is actually something we've thought about for a long time. But as the technology is now evolved, it's something that's actually real. So I definitely think it's going to make our lives more fun.
I remember going way back, because I'm pretty old, as you can probably tell. But, you know, when we first started to talk about machines and bots, I don't think we were talking about bots in the early days. It was always about machines, how they're going to replace us as human beings. There'll always be tasks, though, that human beings have to do. It seems to me, and you touched on this earlier, about the new skill set we need to develop to work better with bots. And I understand it's called the missing middle. What do we need to do to prepare for that?
You know what? I think it's probably more an attitude thing, and it's you know. And I started my life on radio as well, doing a radio show called Bite Into It. It's in its 25th year,
Wow.
but it was about trying to reduce techno fear, like, you know, don't be scared of the machines, embrace them. And I think that's why it's that cultural thing that's really important, because if you're open to learning new things, then you can embrace it as well. But I do think it's definitely a new way of learning and a new way of being able to think about things, and it's a renaissance of you know, looking at smarter information that that we haven't had in the past. So in the past it was about books and it was about reading, not to say that none of that is useful, but now we have this ability to become so much more immersed and to know about what's going around in our spaces, and it really will help us to learn a lot faster than we did in the past. So
there is a wonderful thing about making mistakes, though, isn't there? I mean, this was the way to learn, is that you'd make a mistake, and it was only ever a fault if you didn't learn from that mistake. AI seems to be taking us into an environment where it's going to be harder to make mistakes, because that intellect will be there to help us through those processes. Is that a good thing?
I don't know. You know, even a company like Microsoft, our first bot we launched onto the internet, it was a mistake. It turned racist within 2 days of being launched on Twitter because of the way it was being trained by human beings.
Yes.
And so we learned a lot from that. We learned how to, you know, train digital assistants and bots, and how to make them less biased, etc. So, and I think the nature of AI is quite experimental. So we're always failing and learning fast and that kind of stuff. So there's definitely, and I think that is becoming even more part of our way that we're building this technology, is that there is this whole idea, instead of trying to, you know, build 2 years of something, you build something small launch it, see if it works. If it fails, then at least you've learned something and you move to the next thing. So I think AI helps us to test our ideas faster and see if they work, and then be able to pivot and adjust.
Yeah. From that experience, that first experience you talked about with Microsoft and the first bot that you developed, turned sinister so quickly. From my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, AI is unlikely to exhibit any human emotions like love, like hate, and I'd imagine even right and wrong. It's got to be fed that information. I guess it's going to do what it's designed to do, or it's programmed to do. And I believe, and once again, I really would value your opinion on this, therein lies a big problem. Because if AI is programmed to do something devastating or even something that's beneficial, but it's programmed to use any means of achieving that goal, that can't be good, can it? How do we protect that?
Yeah. It's a very difficult question, but it's the way that AI is programmed is based on previous conversations and previous learnings. Yes. So what you're saying is potentially true, that, there is a way that it will pick up on certain emotions, etc. And a lot of people are predicting that AI not only will be able to be an assistant to us, but even potentially a companion. And that's because of the way it remembers conversations and will remind you to do things like, take your daily tablet or get some fresh air or relax or breathe. And these are techniques that we would traditionally go to coaches and those, or friends or different people, but and they're techniques that have got a pattern associated with them. But I think AI going evil, it would have to be quite a dramatic thing to happen.
I have thought quite a lot about that, and I do think it's a bit like raising kids. We influence how children will grow up. We influence how we talk to them. We educate them as parents, and I don't see this as anything different. I mean, there will be elements of people who want to use this for bad, but that's not a good enough reason not to develop it, in my view. There's so much good that can come from this, and we have to accept that that's one of the risks, I think.
Yeah. And you'll notice that there's a real rebirth of the ethics and bringing back people who think about ethics and bringing those people back into the business and looking at we have a whole ethics framework around transparency and bias and, analysing the way it works. And that's going to be a really, really important part of organisations who are working in this space, having an ethics framework. So there'll always be a way to be able to figure out if what you're doing has got an element of good associated to it, and we're about to. It's quite a dramatic topic, and it's probably one of the areas that you've seen people stop talking about automated vehicles, rather more self-driving cars, because the thing is that automated vehicles makes more sense than actually being able to give complete control to cars, because they're going to have to make these kind of decisions that are really, really difficult to make, and it's going to really disrupt the current models that we have in place, where it's actually the driver that's responsible for the safety of people in cars versus the car. So there's a lot of thinking we need to do around that space to try and figure that out. I was in California
only a matter of a couple of months ago, and I saw my first ever on the freeway a driverless car, or what do you call it? Automated. Driverless car. Yeah, driverless car. It was freaky. It really was, because it came up and the guy was actually watching a video, and he was the only person in the car, and it was just driving expertly, just moving from lane to lane. There was no. So I actually followed him for a while just to see, or we did, just to see how it went. But it was quite amazing. I am so conscious of your time. I know you have to go. Give me a 30-second or a 1-minute snap on what you think AI will be like in 10 years' time. What are we going to be doing?
Oh, wow, 10
You got
years.
1 minute. You got
1 minute. I love this question. You've really made me think on my toes. I think it's probably going to give us more time for us to do the things that we love.
Oh, yes.
So it's going to take away a lot of those boring things we have to do. Our expenses, our travel bookings, booking meeting rooms, finding a car park, getting that fixed.
Yes.
Like a lot of those things that are, we just suck up so much of our time. Learning new things, looking at the way something will look like in the future, like, being able to walk around something, being able to also go back in time, a lot of these kind of things. And I really do believe that AI will be quite transparent to us. So it'll be quite an ambient environment, but with just making our lives so much easier in terms of the kind of things that we need to get done. And taking advantage of computer vision and taking advantage of machine in learning and prediction to be able to create better paths for us in terms of being able to have fuller, more emotionally rich, greater experiences than sometimes our busy 12-hour work days can deliver. So I'm looking forward to that future, because I think at the moment one of the most precious things we have is time, and how do I get that time back? And that's one of the things that I really look forward to in the future, and being able to have more time in my day to do art and creativity and thinking about things and reminiscing and relaxing and meditating,
all those things,
and living longer. So yeah.
And speaking of time, we are out of it. Thank you so much, Rita. It has been an absolute delight talking to you, and I just love your enthusiasm for this thing called AI.
Thank you
I think it's wonderful.
All right.
And Rita Arrigo is the Chief Digital Advisor at Microsoft. We thank them so much for their time and for Rita's time. Rita, thank you so much. We'll talk again soon.
We will. Bye-bye.
AI unlocks the art of science.
When you open a bottle of beer, I don't think many people actually know the level of science that's filled into that bottle. Back in time, it took Carlsberg several years to produce a new beer. But using Microsoft Artificial Intelligence, we will be able to detect new flavors in a split second and develop better beers faster.
With AI, we redefine what's possible.
So cheers!
The Department of Health and Human Services focus is around shifting the trajectory of people's lives.
When we think about digital, we focus on the need to provide our employees with better tools and collaboration capabilities, information sharing across agencies and departments, and front-facing client systems. In human services, we focused on our ability to modernise outdated applications, enabling citizens to have a better mobile experience and automating work to remove inefficiency and paper flows. So we've delivered the online housing register where people apply online for social housing, and the client incident management system.
We've built many applications to support Family Safety Victoria to address family violence. We are able to track incidents where Victoria Police have been attending violent situations and share that information across departments.
Our health services are very decentralised, so the challenge is delivering smart digital solutions which can be leveraged across all services. The Victorian Health Incident Management System has reduced the time it takes for a nurse to complete an incident report significantly.
Safe scripts ensure that doctors and pharmacists have the right information when they're prescribing and dispensing medications to ensure the safety of their patients.
In Victoria, we've had unusual weather causing outbreaks of asthma. The thunderstorm asthma application is able to analyse weather data to provide alerts to help people make better decisions about health emergencies.
Our department has a strong belief in social justice. In partnership with Microsoft, we're changing the lives of our citizens.